we look forward to hear from you for your session. So please go ahead.
Okay. Let me go to the review. So, respected Dr. Gopakumar, Vice Chancellor, Professor Lily John, my dear young students, Atira and Akila, I think Akila, and also Suhana, and the rest of all of you. I think, first of all, let me thank you all for this opportunity on World Environment Day. It's always a lovely thing for an environmentalist, or let's say an engineer turned environmentalist, to talk about environment to young people on World Environment Day. In fact, in the last few years, I also want to, acknowledge that I've almost stopped talking to older people. I can't see your smiles. I'm sure some of you must be smiling. Not because I have a problem with them, because as one gets old and one realizes that we have no more, roles to play, big roles to play in solving the crisis that we all created. And when I say we all created, I would, include everybody above 40 or 45 in this crowd, if at all they are there, including me, to be part of the problem. We have messed up this world. And why I start off with talking about or literally acknowledging that we have messed up this world is to say that this is the generation that, was critical in the last 4-5 decades to attempt any solution to the problems that we are seeing in this world. It's a tricky question because in 1972, when the UN General Assembly came together and was talking about how do you balance environment and development, one of the things that came out on the first day itself was that we need to remember and be reminded of this challenge every year. And so they said that June 5th, let's have what we call the World Environment Day. And the first World Environment Day was celebrated in 1974, 2 years later. And in fact, the first World Environment Day, the theme was Only One Earth. And that's exactly the theme that I've taken. I've removed the one only, just said one Earth, no more choices. Interestingly, the theme of that 1974 World Environment Day, the first one, was Only One Earth. Well, let's try and understand this. And, what does this Only One Earth literally mean? It literally means that, and for that, to really understand that, we need to sort of step up and see where we are and what we are as this Earth. See, this Earth is a very, 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 very small speck of a dot, a very small dot, blue in color, pale blue in color, in this universe. An extremely small dot. It could be just a small piece of dust in your room. It could be as small as that. The point is, we are part of a solar system. We have the sun and all the planets going around, and we know that. And this Earth with life on it is one of that in the planet, among the planets in the solar system, and we know none of the other planets have life. While newspapers will keep telling that we are going in search of water in the Mars or life in the wherever, the fact is also that these are extremely hyped up expectations. Even if we have water, as the grandson of Mahatma Gandhi, Gopalakrishna Gandhi, who was West Bengal, was an academician and was West Bengal's governor and all, said once in one of his articles, said that even before we go and send rockets for Chandrayaan and to the Mars and all that, we should actually look at water in our own land. What have we done with ample water that we had in the Earth? What have we done with the mountains of the Earth? What have we done with the rivers of our Earth? before we go into the Mars and search for Earth. I mean, it was a point of view that he put forward purposefully to provoke us to the bare fact that given life on this beautiful small pale dot planet and all the resources it has, and given the fact that we, and we only human beings, I'm saying, have messed it up, we are going in search of these in other places, or justifying the search of it in other planets by saying that we are going in search of water, or and then the media will tell that now we will be solving the problem of water because we're going to Mars. What am I trying to point out? Of them, and then the galaxy, and then the billions of these galaxy and the universe, which is the universe. So what is the spec like? And at this point of time, we don't even know whether there will be life in other places. And even if there is life in other places, we do not even know what is the form. We talk about UFOs and all that, but that's a different set of talking. As of now, we do not have any evidence that there is life in other places. And we have very, very clear evidence that we have life on Earth. We are all here living and evolved over millions of years again. Now, this is a short introduction to what we are on Earth. So basically, it's a very small introduction to Earth. And I'm not going to the details of evolution and how we all came up and all that. Just one thing that I want to say is that about 12 billion years ago, the Earth formed. About 5-6 billion years ago, life started very slowly trickling in 4 billion years ago, 4.5 billion years ago, to quote science or the understanding. And then over the time, and I'm talking about billions of years, and over the time, from these small specks of life, single cells, it went on and on and on, evolved over billions of years to finally form a lot of creatures that we're talking about. And there are great estimates of the number of creatures, but the point is that we are still don't even know whether we know even 1% of it. The point is that there are much, much more species that is out there on the Earth, under the oceans, inside the ice caps, in all sorts of ecosystems, which we haven't even learnt about, we haven't even seen, we haven't even known, we haven't even documented. And we have already started exterminating what we know. Not in small numbers, in millions. And who is this doing the extermination? One species. Just one species. Among all the species, the last of the species. Probably the one which appeared last. That's called Homo sapiens. We have called them Homo sapiens. Before that, there were other human species also. Now, here is the catch. We probably came over 2.5 to 3 lakh years ago, Homo sapiens. And by the name itself, sapiens means wise. We're supposed to be the wisest of all Homo species. And we're also supposed to be the wisest among other creatures as well, or at least we think so. The unfortunate thing here is that it is after the appearance of this species, the Homo sapiens species, that we have had an unprecedented level of extermination and extinction of other species, including the Homo sapiens is supposed to be attributed. It's attributed to the Homo sapiens the fact that most of the other Homo species, the Homo erectus, the Neanderthal, all of them were led to or pushed to extinction because of us. That was the level of brilliance or wisdom that we have. And we are continuing to do that. We are continuing to do that to every other species that we have. We have not left even one ecosystem anywhere in the world to remain intact. We've just gone, habitated there, put up settlements, or even for simple research purposes, we'll be there. And we have intruded into the lives and living ecosystems of every other species in the world, on the Earth. That is the brilliance of the Homo sapiens species. Now, what is this brilliance leading to? That is a story that I will now, sort of cut with what I said right now, and we'll bring it to 46 years after the first World Environment Day was celebrated, 1974. And I said, only one Earth, that was the theme. And in 2000, we are here now. Did we ever expect that we will have a COVID, which will push us to a lockdown for 2 to 3 months, maybe more? And we don't even know whether we will handle this virus. And even if we handle this virus, biologists are already telling us that it will mutate and and a new form will come out because it's already out there. Now, where was this virus for all these times? We should talk to the biologists. We cannot, not even the doctors, in fact, we should talk to the biologists. And they'll tell you, they've already told, that thousands and thousands, in fact, a huge number of viruses. And if you want to know, what they are saying about how many viruses are there around in the world, in the earth. We think this is one virus and it's caused such a big trouble for us. But if you really want to know what is the kind of viruses that they've just done a comparison. A virus is an extremely small creature. You can't see it with our naked eye. And they're saying that if the total number of viruses in the world is taken and put into a balance and measured, and then put all the other species, everybody of them on the other balance, the viruses will outweigh us. Not human beings, rest of everybody. So it looks like it is just there all over the world. It's a very, very special creature. People don't even know whether it's alive. It's a living organism. They're saying that it's not a living organism. Some say that it's a non-living organism, but it's an organism, or it's part of an organism. So there's a lot of definitional problems that we have even to understand virus. Now, my point here is that where was COVID? It was sitting quietly in the body of some bat. And there are millions of such things sitting all over the world in the bodies of various, animals, species, birds, all sorts of creatures, including us, including our body. And what does this virus do? It just sits there. Some are just normal, they're hosting in our places, that's all. And has probably some role which it plays into the body. Now, a virus which is called SARS-CoV-2, we call, moved from a bat into a pangolin, supposedly. That's the last understanding that we're having. And then jumped into the human species. And what are biologists saying this? Why is it happening? They're saying this is happening. And this has also been acknowledged by the United Nations Environment Program. They're saying that this jumping of these viruses are happening for various reasons. One of the reasons is that the niches that these animals and species which carry it are already there. They have certain regions where they live, or certain niches like in a tree or in a wetland, have all been occupied by us now. And over the time, they're also being pushed to the margins. And when survival is in question, all these species which are living or non-living, these organisms, they have a natural tendency to get into or jump into the next survival wagon. That's all. So they'll keep jumping species. And then they found that one of the most proliferating species is a human species. So there are more and more of this jumping into us over the period of time. If you look at the last 20 years, we have had Ebola, and then we have had H1N1, and then you have had various kinds of SARS and MERS, all of them coronavirus types. And they're all jumping into the human species and causing huge havoc, unprecedented havoc, because the coronavirus is unlike any other virus that we have ever known. So unlike even plague, or unlike, let's say, chickenpox virus, we are having a serious trouble with this virus, and the doctors are also seriously problematic. They're saying that they're already, even before the vaccine has come, they're already saying the vaccine will not work. Even if it works, it'll, the virus would mutate and change. So we are in a crisis. And this crisis has demonstrated two things to us. Let us get it very, very clearly. And Dr. Gopakumar also mentioned one of them. In fact, he mentioned almost both of them, but I'll sort of rephrase it into two very clear things that we have been taught by this virus. One, that all of us are vulnerable. There is no differentiation in vulnerability. Everybody is vulnerable. It is exactly like climate change. You cannot, there is no, escape for, people. Some cannot say that, no, I will live in a spaceship, so I will not have climate impact. How many people can do that? So almost all of us are vulnerable to this virus. We can get attacked. The second, and the second big thing that it has taught is very interesting. And that is important to the topic that we are discussing today, is that when the virus took over and all our teams sat and discussed, we realized that one of the ways to fight the virus was to isolate ourselves, to be locked down. And we locked ourselves down completely. All of us, all over the world, in most parts of the world. And for months, couple of months, and we're still having the virus around. The economy has crashed, but the viruses are still around. It may or may not get controlled, but we locked down. And in this lockdown, we learned something. What we learned is that when we locked down, the earth healed itself. It's a very, very critical question. What we couldn't achieve for 46 years of the World Environment Day being reminded to us every year. And we are talking of themes and meetings and programs, and each of these meetings and programs itself have been probably environmentally destructive, at least many of them. You will plant 100 trees and you will have that much carbon emissions doing a meeting to plant 100 trees. That is the stupidity of human beings. And we have done it. We are continuing to do it. And that is not only the stupidity of human beings, the stupidity of my generation or my previous generation, 2-3 generations of people. What have we done? We have done this stupidity. And now we are realizing that when it is shut down, locked down, all human activity stopped. Everyone sat at home, we couldn't work, we couldn't transport, we couldn't move from place to place. What happened? The earth healed itself. Now there is data today which comes out in one of the newspapers saying that at least 50% of all industrial activity is by exploiting nature, or is dependent. Hello? The word is dependent on nature, or it's dependent on nature, but literally we are taking it and living on it. At least 50% of all economic activity in the world. The other story that it's being said is that if we don't learn from the COVID and try to look at how do you balance yourself, how do you redraft your lives to actually heal the earth, we are going to be finished. And that is a very different question, and I'll come to that. That is what I'm trying to come to. The point is, I said, when the corona attacked us, we all went out of activity and the earth healed itself. I don't need to tell you, all of you know, we had videos and pictures and of people seeing the Himalayas from Ludhiana, and all the streets of the worst cities or the most polluted cities very clean. The atmosphere was cleaned up. There was no smoke pollution. Coral reefs were becoming better. Everything was cleaning up slowly and gradually. In fact, one of my very good friends who was working with me in Tunnel, she also said that, she put up an idea which I wrote in my blog. During that 21-day, lockdown, I wrote one blog every day. It's all about most of these issues. And, she said something very interesting is that I think to even address the climate change concern, we should have a 1-month healing lockdown for the earth, for the sake of the earth. Now, this stuff sounded very similar because very familiar. Very familiar because we also do it. Ramzan, we go on a fasting, spiritual, mental, physical, cleaning up. Or Lent, the Christians go on Lent. The Hindus do, vridams and pradoshams and all that. We all do it. The earth has been continuously working and being exploited by us, that now we need to think about giving it a holiday by way of all of us stopping to do things, exploitative things. And that's an idea that she's proposed, and I also put it out on Facebook. Some people have to read, and we do not even know how ideas travel, but we put it out. See, the other fact is, which we also need to see, when I'm talking about only one earth is, why am I talking about only one earth? See, there is a book called Natural Capitalism. I'm sure Gopakumar sir knows or must have read it. See, this Natural Capitalism book, it actually has a quote. It's done, studies have been done on it. Do you know, actually, I'm asking all of you, do you know, and I mean, we can answer later, but which is the most exploitative or, consumeristic country in the world? And how does consumerism get measured? By the per capita consumption of anything, take paper or water or, aluminium, iron, etc., etc., etc. You can say that which is the nation which is the biggest consumer of it, per capita consumption. Now, which is it? Generally America and some of the European countries and also Canada, some in Australia. It come down in line like that. India will all be in the last one, even now. And the thing is that they are the models for us, the growth models for us. The whole attempt would be to go there. But what is happening is even India's attempt, any minister, whether it be BJP government or Congress government or left government or right government or whatever government, and I'm least bothered about them, is that they will all dream only of reaching there. They'll say we have to boycott China or boycott America, but then the dream is the same. We'll have to reach the growth line there. What is wrong with that? The data is very clear. It shows that if the whole world, all of us, you and me, everywhere in the world, 7.4 billion people, achieve the level of the consumption of the American or the Canadian, we will need 8 Earths. 8 Earths. We have only one. Which means that we'll need the resources, the aluminums, the steels, the petrols, the crude, the water, the air. We'll need all of it of equivalent to 8 Earths. We don't have that. We only have one. And that was when the idea or the challenge of limit to growth was proposed. That we have to have growth. We cannot allow growth like this. So when it came to the Paris summit, where we are talking about climate change, and this, I'm not describing climate change. I think most of you would have read about it, or please read about it. When you're going to, climate change and what is the temperature you have to control so that our Earth doesn't heat up, there's no global warming, our, this cyclones won't come, we will not have such a problem of weather and all that. Even to control that took from, to 1.5 degree. We've had discussions, and finally we are deciding. It's a big discussion. It's a very interesting discussion. At the end of the day, it has come down to brass tacks. It is saying, don't consume like this. Don't exploit this much. Don't produce this much. Don't consume this much. That is what is the end point of, all these discussions. Environment is not about some theoretical nonsense being discussed in big, big centers. It is about all of us trying to bring down our exploitation, production, consumption, going to the streets and buying things. No, it's bringing down, that's all. Now, America is saying that we cannot do this because the moment you bring down exploitation or, extraction, production, consumption, this linear thing, and the consumption, and then eventually, throwing out waste. What America is saying is very interesting. America is saying it's not possible because it will affect our growth. It will affect our gross domestic products. What is India saying? India-like countries are saying that, or many countries like, and I say India and America, please give me the examples of third world countries and first world countries. Now, what are the third world countries saying? The third world countries are saying, we cannot do this because we have not reached anywhere that level, no? That level where America has already reached. Let us reach there, then we will try to control. So this discussion is going on. Nobody wants to give up growth. Fortunately, New Zealand is now saying we are giving up growth. And they are talking about degrowth. And that's a wonderful thing that as students, I'm sure you are looking at the new economics, understanding of new economics. There are some wonderful courses on even degrowth and the new political ecology and all that. I think you should explore them to talk about the future. Please don't continue to be, building your careers on the same mistakes that all of us have done, which is gross domestic product, economic growth, development, all these kind of things which have brought us to the crisis. Talk about what is the future like for you. Seriously talk about what is the future like for you. The future like for you, all of you, is to look at the new economic models, to look at what is going to sustain this earth, and hence all of you. Okay, so my point here is about this whole degrowth thing. This discussion is happening and no nation wants to give up. The problem is that if all of us want to grow, we don't have that much earth, and that is the whole limit to growth concern. Okay, so I'll leave that there. Now coming to this other point, which I wanted to say. Why is it the only trouble with the human beings? Why not other animals? Because biologically itself, other animals are programmed to live within the planetary boundaries. That's an amazing thing. They're already programmed. They're not even thinking of going out of it. For them to, or for all life forms on world, there are two things that matter. One, procreation, create the next generation, and two, energy, eat, food. Just two things. I'll tell you, with these two things alone, whole of life is going forward. Even us, human beings. You take these two things out, you're finished. You take your computer out, your your post, you may be professor, you may be student, you may be teacher, you may be VC, take them all out, you won't be finished. Take the university off, you won't be finished. What will finish you, or what will end all of you is when you take the energy out of no food, no water, finished. Atmosphere, etc., finished. Or the living ecosystem, you're finished. Or all of us are finished. Or the capability to procreate, the capability to create the next generation. We are all animals. We are all life forms, animals only. This animal is called Homo sapiens, that's all. Now, what will happen if that procreating capability is taken off? You're finished. The race goes down. The species finished. We are actually doing that to other creatures now, making them like that, with our chemicals and all that. We have already done it to us also. It's a very interesting thing. Nowadays, more people, the number of people who are not able to procreate normally or give birth to a child normally is actually increasing. And tell me, isn't it a problem? It's not a GDP growth idea. No GDP growth economies wanted to do this, but we have eventually done it. How? All our chemicals, all our bad food, all our environment, everything we have damaged completely, that now ultimately it's affecting us. We have to only have medicated next birth systems. Come down to reproduction. We cannot even have normal reproduction. That is one critical thing that has been affected of the human being. As somebody who understands biology in some form, I'm just trying to tell you that's been critical. What is the second thing I told, which is very important for us? Food, energy. Look at what all of us are eating now. Can you with all courage tell that today afternoon I ate food and it was without pesticides and chemicals or some additives which are dangerous to us? You can't. Nobody can. So even in food, we have reached a point where it's not safe food. That even for animals, if you give them some stale food or they won't eat. It is only those animals which want to have to actually eat stale food, they'll eat. That is biology. But you give it to some cat or something, it'll move out. It knows how to select. But we don't know how to select pesticide food, non-pesticide food. Even now, we can't. So these two critical aspects have been destroyed or have been destroyed by us. No animal destroyed it. So we have the capability. Our wise man, Homo sapiens did it. Now look at the other thing, waste. I'm covering a lot of these areas and talking about some fundamentals. Look at waste. Tell me one other animal in this whole world which is wasting. Nobody. Not one other animal. We, with people starting from global president, Trump, to Indian president, Prime Minister Modi ji, to I'm naming names. It's not about posts. To small politicians, to bureaucrats, to professors, to teachers, to intelligent people, to great prophets. All of us were there as human beings. Still, we are the only species which is wasting things. How come? Why other animals are not doing it? Because as I said earlier, biologically, they are part of the circle. The part of this big circle called organic cyclicity, or the organic cycle of the earth. They do not know the linear process. They come, they start consuming, they excrete. It goes back to the earth. Inside, maybe some seeds will also be there. The seeds will again sprout. It will again create an tree or something. It will have continuity of food. That's the whole cyclicity process. Most animals, almost all animals have that. They're part of it. We were also only like that. We can continue to be. I mean, we can still be that with a little more, intelligence. We can do that. But what have we done? We have created a linear process. Exploit, extract, exploit, produce things out of it, manipulate it, change it, then consume it. Put it in the market, consume it. It's not even whether we know we want it, because our forefathers, not many generations, no, just one generation, two generations, even my generation and earlier generations, what is the consumption like? One shirt, two shirts, three shirts, one or two pants. And now look at what all of us, look at yourself, 10 pants, 15 shirts. Everybody who is walking up and down the house will give you a shirt, give you a pant, you'll buy 2 cars, 3 cars, you'll buy all sorts of things. And some extremely stinkingly rich persons will make 40,000 square feet houses and magnificent bungalows, and they'll keep exploiting it. And 90% of it is waste. It goes back as debris into the earth, which the earth cannot carry, it cannot recycle, reuse. It cannot do anything. It's just stuck there. That is again human. When are we going to correct it? See, the Anthropocene is defined by that actually. When you look at the geological, the crust of the earth and trace history, they found that there's a huge portion of earth where there is such creations of human beings, mostly waste, which is dumped on the earth, and hence they're now going to define that part of the age of the earth as Anthropocene, which means the age when humans intervene in the earth. We cannot go on like this. It's a problem. That's why I said one earth, no more choices. Now, what has COVID taught us? It has taught us, as I said, that we are stuck. We'll continue to be stuck. And what is climate change teaching us? There is data actually on this. Arabian Sea is not a serious cyclone area. Now the numbers are increasing. We are all learning it. The Bay of Bengal region, the number of cyclones and tornadoes and all that are increasing more and more on that region. All over the world, the east and the western coast of the American continent is being inundated by huge winds and floods and tornadoes and cyclones and hurricanes every year in much larger number than was ever there. Why? Because ocean currents are completely changing over time. Why? Because the earth is heating up. Why is the earth heating up? Simple. We are having a global warming. Why is that global warming? Because we are putting out all the carbon dioxide so much, and enough of it is not being sunk. And because it's not being sunk, what will happen? It will happen. The only thing that will happen, it will put hole on the on the atmosphere. You'll have the ozone holes and all that. And because of that, what will happen? We'll get heat trapped here. It's not moving forward. The heat gets trapped inside, and it's actually boiling the earth. We're calling it boiling the earth actually. So some simple acts of ours is basically the cause of all the millions of species being extincted or pushed to extinction every hour of the day. We don't even know that. So this is the base on which we are discussing this only one earth, and hence what do we do about it? Now let us come to what do we do about it. This whole question of I've described the problem more than enough. Much more than enough. Now, when people ask us, okay, what is the solution? You have messed up everything. What is the solution? There are people, I don't want to do this also. But more than giving actual solutions, I can say, you have been using fluorescent bulbs, change it, put it to LED. Will it solve the Earth's crisis? It will solve our consumer crisis. It will bring down our electricity bill. It will also change the way we are using energy, so there will be some impact. But it's not going to solve the crisis. Then we'll say, no, we'll put 1 crore trees. See, trees are, elements that give you or matter for about 30% of our oxygen. We have to sink the carbon dioxide. So wherever the pollution is, you put 100 more trees, it will sink the carbon dioxide, it will give you oxygen. And we need oxygen. So we'll survive. But it's only 30%. Where does the 70% oxygen come from? We always thought it was trees, 100% trees. I know a lot of people who are saying that 100% trees. No, The rest of it comes from the oceans. Life came from the oceans. And if at all, let me tell you, at some point of the day, life is taken away from all of us, it will be the oceans which will take them. There are already, models that are being built on that. And who is it in the oceans that is giving us the oxygen? Tell me. Who is it? How does ocean sink our carbon dioxide and give out oxygen? I mean, oceans are today our biggest dumping yards of our plastic waste, all our waste, biggest dumping yards. No respect for it. And in another 20 years, there are, what do you call, statistical extrapolations which have been done to show that every single fish and creatures in the ocean will be contaminated with microplastics in another 15, 20 years. You and me are doing it. Don't think that some other fellow is doing it. Some government of India or government of United States is doing it. No, you and me are doing it. Recklessly using our plastics, recklessly using materials, whatever we're dumping out. And that is how. Now, 70% of, I said, oxygen comes from the oceans. Who is giving that? There's a very tiny creature called phytoplankton. Have you heard about it? I'll talk about phytoplankton in the end. But for now, just remember phytoplankton. Now, this phytoplankton is actually the ones which are taking our carbon dioxide and sending out oxygen. And they live in the oceans. They're also being badly attacked. We can't plant phytoplanktons like we plant trees. The best we can do is plant trees, but we can't plant phytoplanktons. We have to create the environment or leave the environment in an intact way so that phytoplanktons can grow. And then there will be, it's an organism. So it can grow and then there will be better oxygen for us. We are not doing that. So the point is simple. How do we solve it? There's only one way that we can solve the problem, and that has been partly demonstrated by the COVID lockdowns, which is that we do not need to do most of the things we thought we have to do. It will mean a complete restructuring of the way we have built our world, including our economics, starting from the family to the countries. It will mean we should stop talking about growth and should talk about degrowth. It will mean we have to stop talking about the current level of linear economics and talk about circular economy. And I want you to read Circular Economy. I'm sure many of you are reading it. I'm not even undermining you in any form. I know many of these things you also know, but I'm trying to articulate it in a connected fashion. That is what we don't know. Because especially when we get into academics, it is syllabus, you have names, and there's no connection between. That's how we also did it. Engineering, we study all the names, no connection between. So I'll go and build things in a place, I don't know ecology. I don't know landscapes. I do not know hydrology. I'll just go and do it. And then it will fall one day. That is why all these people built houses near the river and near the lake sites. And when the floods came, it all got washed away. Why? I'll tell you, those poor people who build those houses should not be blamed. Those engineers must be hung. Seriously, they must be paid charged. Those fellows who built those 4 mansions, in 4 flats in Marad, which was pulled down, it is those engineers who must be hung, who must be held responsible. I'm an engineer, must be responsible. Why? Because they should know that we cannot do anything without understanding ecology. We have not been taught. Even today, the KTU syllabus doesn't teach ecology. I'm sure even in the MSW syllabus, we really need to, or any syllabus. I mean, this is beyond syllabus. Anybody learning anything should understand that we are on this earth and we have a climate, we have oceans, and we have ecology. What ecology? Various ecosystems. Whether it be in a wetland, you can only live like this. In Alapura, you can only live like this. In a mountain, you can only live like this. Each place has to be differently handled. We don't know that. So what we will do, we make one design, build it on the Wayanad hills. We'll make another design, the same thing, same design, we put it in Ernakulam. It will not work. The Wayanad hills will come down because it is not fitting there. So basically, it has been largely this kind of entrenched minds that created all these things, and we have also created syllabuses like that. So we have a problem. I'm getting into the academic questions because seriously, we need to understand that ecology is part of any education that we have to do. If you don't understand that, you're done, especially for MSW. Now, let me come to the solution part. I've already said one. understanding ecology. And this I am doing especially because you're all students. If you want to go ahead as academicians or practitioners in your MSW, or normal students or teachers or whatever, let me tell you, one, you need to understand and imbibe ecology. Very clear. What are ecosystems? What is ecology? What is climate change? Why is it happening? This is much as equivalent as eating of food. Whatever way the syllabus, you will eat food. You will have your brush, your mouth and all that. So just as much as that, please understand. The second point is in terms of solution. We have been, Tunnel, for example, has been working on a very, very pertinent solution idea called zero waste. What does zero waste mean? Zero waste is something that fits into the cyclic or the circular economy model. What is it? It means we restructure manufacturing, production, use, consumption, etc. in such a way that waste does not happen. Now, how do you do that? Simple. Right now, materials are exploited and just thrown out. That's why you want waste management. In the new model, we will only use that kind of materials which can be reused or recycled or refurbished or remanufactured. And if you cannot do that with some material, don't use it. You will always have an alternative. So I have built a house with about 10% of the cement that normal houses need. The rest is my own land, mud, some lime from the lakes, bamboo, which will come from planting. 10 years, you get bamboo, casuarina, which is again renewable resource, most of it, and a lot of recycled materials. Still can do it. So this is a recyclable kind of house. That's the idea that we all try and do. So zero waste is a concept that you want to. I mean, because it's a very short time that I'm having, we can all. I mean, I can go on for 2 hours on zero waste, but we're not doing that. So zero waste is one concept that I want you all to look at what it is. And if somebody is telling me zero waste means no waste should be seen in the road, I'll tell you it's completely wrong. It's not about that at all. It's a much more deeper concept of within the circular economic model. The second thing is about agriculture. Industrial agriculture at such a huge level is not only poisoning us, but destroying rainforests. Look at what is happening in Brazil. The most pristine rainforest, which will hold the environmental, the climate of the earth, or our own Western Ghats rainforest. It has to be protected like we protect our eyes. But what is happening? It's being destroyed. And why is rainforest being destroyed in Brazil? In the Amazonian rainforest is being destroyed to put up plantations of what? Of soya and corn. And why are you putting up plantations there? Don't you have land otherwise? No. For the large production of soya and corn, and then feeding it to the animals, and then creating the cattle, and then the cattle becomes beef or meat, red meat, and then it goes into the market. We have created a huge industrial complex called agriculture, which is extremely destructive. What is the alternative? We have to move into the small scale, millions of small scale agroecological farms, which are already there. Even the large farms can actually become smaller chunks of manageable farms, which will manage it agroecologically, which means no pesticides, no chemicals, and within the framework of the environment. So that is the second point that I want to talk about. The third point that I want to talk about in looking at the design for the future is to look at climate resilience in everything. What is resilience? Resilience is to be able to overcome and live there. How do you do resilience? It's a whole lot of activities which are not carbon emitting or minimal on carbon emitting. In Kerala, we have done a work in Wayanad called Carbon Neutral Meenangadi. And Meenangadi is one panchayat. We are looked at all the emissions of it. The final report is going to come out. We have looked at all the emissions of it. And then we have looked at all that can actually neutralize it. And then when we find that some more is needed to neutralize it, then we have to have that much planting or bring down your transportation emissions or things like that. So there is a carbon neutral approach that we can talk about. And along with the carbon neutral approach, you also have to talk about climate resilient communities, building resilience into it. Why? Because we'll still have floods. We'll still have earthquakes, let's say. We'll still have all these disasters. How are we going to, cope within that? Sorry. So that is the bigger challenge that we're talking about. The fourth thing that I'm talking is one of the biggest emitters of carbon and hence the destruction of our climate systems is buildings. There the big question comes, do we need any more buildings like this? Do we need to actually construct like what we are doing now, destroying mountains, pulling down? We don't need. I'll give you a statistics. In Kerala, in 2011, Kerala already had nearly 11 lakh houses which were shut down and unused, unoccupied. In 2021 statistics, because mostly in the census, this could rise to about 22 lakhs. Imagine. What does it mean? We're actually overbuilding ourselves. Even while there's a lot of people who don't have enough of even a land or a house to live. There is no apportioning that is happening. And we're pulling down mountains and, dumping it into the sea, like in the Birmingham port project that's being done. To students, I'll just have to, tell you that I strongly feel, and it's a personal opinion, that in a few years, we will realize that the Birmingham project has been the most environmentally destructive project that we did. Why? Because lakhs and lakhs of tons of rock, mountain rock, is needed to build the 3-kilometer way up there. We didn't have enough, and so only about 30% has been built. This is 70% means some more mountains in Kerala or Tamil Nadu have to be pulled down to make that. And will it be economically good for, in the long run? I don't think so. Because in the process of this, we are going to have a lot of destruction in terms of, when the floods come and all that, our mountains, etc., we're going to have a lot of impact. So in that sense, we are really shaking up the environment in a way that should never be done. So these are 3, 4, things that I thought I must put forward. And there's 3 things I want to, highlight. Is one I already said. Can we propose as youngsters? See, there is a Greta Thunberg who's already standing up and saying things. What is he saying? She's saying, I'm not going to school. Because if there is no future, you're already saying if the temperatures will come up by 2.53, our waters will come in there. The elders who ran the world till date are already saying that it's a dead end. And we are not going to do anything about it. That's what they're saying. The American government has moved out of the climate summit. They're saying all this. And then they're saying, but you should all continue to study well. Don't go on the streets. So Greta is basically what she's saying. Greta Thunberg is only saying, we won't go to school because if there is no future, then why should we go to school? Logical question. I want all the elders like me to answer it. Very difficult. And Ridhima Pandey is also now saying similar things. Our own India's, Greta Thunberg, she's also saying, let's listen to them. Let's listen to them. Let's listen to people like you. It is not enough. We are not going to solve the problem by, doing our cell phone, mobile phone, or doing WhatsApps, or sharing messages, or doing a Facebook post. It can only be solved if we take serious personal commitments into our life. And then translate those commitments into social commitments, translate them into community commitments, translate them into state level commitments, and eventually national commitments and global commitments. That is the big role that social work students should be doing now. And I'm not going to say, okay, in which sector you want to do medical, that there are huge sectors. But let me tell you, in every sector, there is a role which we have to play, but play it within the limits of the planet's boundaries. Not physical boundaries, but planet's boundaries of sustainability. Dr. Gogo mentioned about sustainable development. There is a limit to it. There is a planetary boundary to it. And so there are 2 things that, I would say. One is, even for healing the earth, can we have this 1 month holiday? It's a proposal that some of us are already talking about. 1 month global holiday. Lockdown. We don't need to have such a disaster, because when you do a global lockdown with a planned way, then it can be operated well. There's not going to be any big shake-up. We're not going to shut down for 1 month. An idea. Without which I don't think we're going to solve the climate crisis so easily. We are not going to. The second thing that is very important is I want you to read this terrific book by one of the best biologists around called E.O. Wilson. And he has written a book called Half Earth. And he says that half the earth you need to apportion for the nature. Don't compromise on that. It is when you are building a small house, or when you're building a slum, or when you're building a complex. Let's understand that this earth is limited. We only have this much of an earth. We don't have this much of it. You can't pull it and expand it like a balloon. Only this much. And within that, you have all of it to survive because they are all interconnected. So let us see how to do that. And the last thing I want to say is for you, young people. See, gray haired, above 50. I'm sitting here. And I'll tell you what. We think as parents, and I have a son of your age, we think as parents that we are doing wonderful things for you. Even as teachers. What all? Good education, good food, nice clothes, but a very, very, very bad earth and environment which you will not be able to survive. It will be difficult, it will be a challenge to survive in that. So we have done everything else for you. And we are letting this terrible earth for you. Asking you, now you solve the problem. I think it's a crime. So what we should do as your generation, I'll also be there. We'll all join you. But you lead. The solution is that you have to now take things into your hands. You have to lead this cleaning up of the healing and the cleaning up of the earth in small ways, in your ways, but translate it into larger. Slowly it will get translated. And then you have to create the systems for the future. Because it's all about you. And we only have 1 minute. So I think I've largely covered what I wanted to say. One last thing, and this is a very sensitive thing, but I'll tell you. I said I'll talk to you about phytoplanktons. See, to me, phytoplanktons are very important species. I told you it is phytoplanktons which is providing 70% of the oxygen. This is data. This is actual biology. We think trees do 30%, or plants and trees and all these green chlorophylls, etc. They do 30%, but this is 70%. Now, there are honeybees. What does honeybees do? Honeybees are very important. They say that when bee colonies collapse, and in American regions, bee colonies are collapsing. When there are no more bees in the world, you won't be able to produce food because the pollination won't happen and all that. So bees become very important. Suppose I take away the rainforest, there are no more rainforests, what will happen? Completely climate will be destroyed. We don't even know what will happen. So there are these oceans, the coral reefs, the mountains, the ice capes in the Arctic and the Antarctic. Now, if they are intact, we are intact. Suppose they completely melt in 20 years, there will not be any land on Earth except for some little mountains. Imagine. So, ice capes, Arctics, Antarctics, the oceans, the coral reefs, the phytoplankton-like creatures, the honeybees-like creatures, sentinel creatures, very important creatures, they have to become our gods. I mean, it's a proposal. You want to take it, take it. They have to become our gods. They are actually like our gods. If they are not there, we don't even survive. So in this, sometimes, when I communicate, I ask young people, suppose, I am sure in between, in your crowd, there are Hindus and Muslims and Christians and Parsis and Sikhs and all of them. And all of you have gods. And please consider that I'm also a believer. I'm not a non-believer. But I am also telling you, suppose I remove Ram and Sita and Krishna and Jesus and Nabis and all of them out. And I'm saying that they don't exist. They suddenly are not there at all. I'm just asking, will the earth stop functioning? No. It will continue to be. Because the earth and its facets are not dependent on them. It's dependent on the phytoplankton and the bees. Even human beings. Even all of us, it's dependent on us. We don't behave, it's messed up. We behave, it's better. With the phytoplankton is lost, we're finished. So for me, all these creatures and all these ecosystems are much, much more important than gods. then the gods that we know, they are the new gods. I do not know how it will be like, but I'm just saying. I'm not being a political and non-godly and all that. But I still have my spiritual thinkings and all that. But I'm just saying that aren't they more important? But what are we doing? We are fighting over all these gods and religions. I personally think that the human species, wherever we are a hugely distracted. We have been distracted by 100 things, starting from simple things like cell phone to temples and gods and religion and and cars and Lamborghinis. And any boy you ask what is his biggest need in life, they say no, I want to drive it. What is the big scooter, bike? That is what I want. We are distracted a lot. If at all, there are at least a few people who can stand up for the new world, the new Green Deal, which Europe is now talking about. America is also talking about new Green Deal, which is the futuristic point of view. If at all some of us can stand up for that, please understand that these creatures play a much, 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 much better role than all of us put together on this earth. We need to be a little more humble. So only one earth and the Homo sapiens, and we have to act. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
And the session was very informative and it gives more insight to our knowledge, I should say. So before going on to the discussion, I would like to have an announcement. Kindly do fill the feedback form and registration form, only after which you will be getting the certificates. So please make sure that you fill the registration form and feedback form. The link to the forms are in the chat box. So